All right. Hello, everyone. Okay, I've been trying to make this work for the last couple of minutes, but I'm glad that we are finally live. And as promised last week, I was talking about how I want to start going live more often and just coming here and talking about different topics. This is pretty much how I also teach all of my one-on-one classes where we're just in it, we're in the class, we have a topic in mind and I can just teach. So my intention with a lot of these live streams is to remove the barriers between me and you and between teaching and just to share and add value as much as possible. So in today's live stream, I thought we could talk a little bit about how to build and to grow expertise as yoga teachers. And I know that some of you that watch the channel are yoga teachers yourself, or are in the process of becoming yoga teachers. You're in the yoga teacher training process, and I know this because so many of you reach out to me through email, through Instagram, through social media platforms. And it's amazing to see all the questions that come up and all the things that everyone's asking. So I thought that this question comes up so much. How do we build authentic expertise as yoga teachers? We want to teach well, we want to teach properly, and we want to know what's the process like to actually deliver an authentic experience to the people that we're teaching. So, through today's live training session, I want to share my journey, all the things I have learned so far about building expertise over time and continuing to grow, right? Because we obviously are yoga students first and foremost. So while you build your expertise, it's also important to remember that you are learning and growing in the process. Okay. So I will take some questions as and when I can, but the aim of today's live stream is more to just share and to add value as much as I can. Okay. Um, One of the quick questions that I see is, how can yoga help for footballers? So yoga is helpful for any athlete, any profession, because it's so good for your nervous system. It's great for increase in strength, endurance, and stamina, and of course flexibility as well. So it can have a multitude of benefits. Just depends on what you want to focus on and how to get started with. Now, having said that, let's jump into what we're focusing in today's training and what we're going to talk about. So, for anybody that's watching this that is a yoga teacher or even a yoga student and thinking about becoming a teacher, the most important thing is that we really deeply try to understand the world of yoga and the topic of yoga, right? Because there's so much information out there now that it can feel sometimes overwhelming, it can feel confusing, it can feel like we don't even know where to start. And that happens because there's so many sources that it's not clear where we're supposed to focus, right? And I'm here to tell you that it is possible to create a step by step journey to developing your expertise, and it's possible to map it out slowly and steadily. The most important thing that you want to do while you're becoming a better teacher or even a better student is to find the right resources and reliable sources of information that you can count on, that you know that they've also got their knowledge from the right place. And what is a better place than from the source itself, right? So I would recommend, as much as you can, to get in touch with Indian organizations, Indian institutions, India based or Indian origin teachers and practitioners, because the thing is, they're the closest to the tradition and the closest to the culture, and most likely they will speak, understand, read, and write Sanskrit, or at least one of the denominations of the Indian languages that is necessary to be able to translate and understand the ancient yogic texts. Now, there are a lot of amazing international teachers as well who have taken the time to understand the world of yoga and the depth of it, and they also have the correct knowledge. But you have to obviously check in and see, where they've studied, who they've gained their knowledge from. But I have to say, there are some wonderful international teachers also who have done the same work and who are still doing great work going forward. So the main thing is where that information comes from And can you rely on it as a credible source of information? That, I think, is the most important thing. After that, once you've really checked in and you know that, okay, this is a great institution, it has existed for a long period of time, you also understand its lineage, right? So every institution that you get in touch with will have a lineage of its own, or a school of thought that it predominantly believes in. And you want to check in to see if you also, so it's easiest when your uh, yogic belief systems and the institution's yogic belief systems are more or less along the same lines, because then it's so much easier to study and to understand and to adapt, right? So the next step would be to also check in, like, what are their teaching methods, what are their core belief systems, how do they really disseminate their knowledge and information, what do they believe in, what is their lineage. Once you've been able to do that and you know what their lineage is about, you agree with the majority of it, or at least you're interested in knowing more of what they're offering, what they have to say, then you can now find the relevant teachers or educators attached to those institutions, or alumni of those institutions, that can now go ahead and teach you some of the authentic expertise based information that you're looking for. So, sometimes you might come across the institution first and some of the alumni later, or you might encounter some of the people first. Like, for example, those of you that have found my channel, you know that my lineage comes from the Kevalitham Yoga Institution, and that I heavily rely on my study, my time living there, because I lived and grew up there with my dad being the director of the institution, and just spending so much time, even as a child, being in that environment, that you know that my lineage comes from there, what it's about, and so you can associate me with something, right? And I think most people, even if you're seeking knowledge from someone, it's good to know where their background is, where they come from, who they're studying from, who their teachers have been, and so that you can trust that what they're about to tell you and share with you is um, authentic, credible, and reliable. So that's the other thing, that either you can find the institution itself, or you might come across a practitioner or an ex-student or an alumni who may have gone ahead and created their YouTube channels the way I have, and who might be able to share more knowledge and more information with you. So always do your homework on who you're learning from and who you're picking up these skill sets from. So once you've been able to identify a teacher, organization, institution, an area of work that you want to specialize in, then the next step is now to just really start going from scratch, right? Because yoga is part of a much wider system of the six Indian philosophies, which we call the Shardarshana. And if you haven't studied the Shardarshan yet, we have a course on that, and the link will be in the description, so you can go ahead and check that out. But aside from that, the Shardarshan are very important six Indian philosophies, and yoga philosophy is one of them. So, in order to understand yoga philosophy properly, it's very important to understand the world that it's coming from. And so, my recommendation usually is to anybody that's just starting out, build your foundation, have a good understanding of the six different Indian systems of philosophy, so that you know which puzzle, or which, like, yoga is a piece of the puzzle, but you need to know the puzzle itself first. And that only happens when you study the six Indian philosophies. And ideally, if you study all nine, right? Even including Jainism, Buddhism, and Charvak, which are three more aside from the six Indian philosophies. So once you get a good framework with those six Indian philosophies, now you're in a good headspace to say, okay, I understand the spectrum of knowledge. I have a good understanding of where it's coming from. And now you're ready to deep dive into yoga as one of those philosophies. And usually, when we're teaching and studying yoga, you would also need to study the Sankhya philosophy, which is a sister philosophy to yoga, and which presents the metaphysics of the yoga philosophy. And then yoga presents more of the structured, the pathway. But most of these six Indian philosophies always work in pairs. So Yoga and Sankhya go together. We have the Purva and Uttara Mimamsa going together, and then Nyaya and Vaishika philosophies going together. So when you're trying to study yoga philosophy, you would, in most cases, need to understand Sankhya philosophy also pretty well, so that you can then go ahead and understand yoga philosophy even better. When we're teaching in most of our classes, I usually insist that we start with the six Indian philosophies, because it's important for me that all the students get that basic knowledge right. And then once I know that they're comfortable, we've done an overview, they have context, they know that, okay, this is where the Indian philosophy or the yoga philosophy falls, then we can deep dive into the Yoga Sutras and go even deeper into it. So I would say that anytime you're trying to build or develop your expertise, try to start from scratch and then build your way upwards slowly and steadily. Because until and unless you understand the context in which something was created, or you understand the sister philosophies around it, until then your knowledge will always be limited. So, to have full expansive knowledge, it's necessary for us to know these six philosophies and then to grasp where along that spectrum yoga truly lies. Now, once we know where yoga truly lies on this entire spectrum of philosophies, then you can jump right in and start to understand, you can understand the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, Hatha Yoga Pradipika, Gheran Samhita, Shiva Samhita, Yoga Yajnavalkya, Yoga Vashisht. Depends on what kind of things you're trying to get into. But most important thing is that you have a broad base of these six, and then you're ready to kind of go deeper into each one. Okay, so that's what I would say is a good place to start off your yoga study, and a good place to be at. So I will also come really quickly to the questions that are on the chat. But once you've been able to do that, now from here, now you're into the world of yoga philosophy, right? So you have tapped into one of the pillars of yogic foundation, which is number one, yoga philosophy. You're in this realm of Indian philosophy, yoga philosophy. Couple of great books I would recommend. All right, these are written by Indian authors and extremely experienced researchers and professors, and I would highly recommend this book, which is called An Introduction to Indian Philosophy by Satish Chandra Chatterjee and Dhirendra Mohan Dattaji. So, very, very good book. Gives you a great summary of the six Indian philosophies. Great one to have. Aside from this, most recently, I've also been reading the Sankhya Darshan from the Bihar School of Yoga. Also, a great book that covers in great depth the Sankhya Darshan. So, another great book to have. Aside from this, of course, my favorite book on Patanjali Yoga Sutras is from Kevalya Dham by Dr. P.V. Karambelkar. That always serves as a cornerstone and a foundation of our yoga philosophy understanding. So, once you've got some of these books, like Introduction to Indian Philosophy, Sankhya Karika, or at least a book on Sankhya Darshan, along with a book on the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, now you're in the right direction, right? Because you've tapped into number one, the first foundational element, which is our Indian philosophy. Now, once you finish, or you at least start tapping into this column, now imagine a second column, right? So we've got this going, we are on our path to understanding it deeper. The next thing you would need to do is to very deeply now begin to understand um, yoga and mental health. Okay, and I'm speaking from a perspective of our modern day understanding as well, because Indian philosophy is one thing, it's the base and the bedrock of most things. But we also need to be up to date with what's going on in the world at the moment and try our best to combine the best of both these worlds to help people, to make sure that people come out of suffering, to make sure people are aware of how they're functioning. So something that we do in our classes when I'm teaching my students, especially one-on-one, is that we take the philosophies and we keep trying to apply it to our own lives. And we're like, okay, this is what the philosophy says. What does Indian psychology say? What does Western psychology say? How do we combine both? How do we arrive at a proper conclusion about what everything is trying to say. And usually, what happens is a lot of times when students come in, they're also, I mean, we're all living beings, right? There's so many things going on in our own lives as well. And so we take their own life as a little bit of an example and we say, okay, in this situation, what theory of Western psychology can we use that might help? Or what theory of Indian philosophy can we use that might be helpful? And you won't believe it, we've looked at some of the yam niyam, we've looked at some of like the deepest philosophies like that Muni Patanjali has, including the Chitta Bhumi theory, the five different Chitta Vrittis, the Chitta Vikshepas, Sutra 1.33, all of these, and we've tried to apply them to real life, and that has been game changing for so many of the people that I teach. Using even one yama, breaking it down and trying to apply it to their own life has just been like phenomenal inner work that they have been able to do. One of the examples that I can share with you is that we were studying the yamas, and we were studying aparigraha as well as asteya. And I think it was in asteya where we had this like amazing moment where we realized that asteya is also non-stealing of time, attention, energy of other people. And it's important to know, to first check, are we doing that with people in our lives right now? Like, yeah, this is a philosophy, but are we doing that with people in our lives right now? Are we stealing other people's time, attention, and energy without them realizing? And there could be a chance that we are, right? So how do we reduce that? How do we make it easier? And then, of course, aparigraha means hoarding, and aparigraha encourages no hoarding. But the hoarding is not just physical. You could also be hoarding people as emotional resources and as um, literally sources of validation when you don't really want to. You're not really serving them, or you're not seeing them as a valuable human being. You're only seeing them as a resource for your own selfish purposes. And so then we discussed aparigraha as emotional hoarding, and how we can like let certain people go or bring certain people in only when we're sure that we want to valuably engage with them in our lives. And having discussions like these brings the philosophy to life. It takes us so much beyond just studying it as a concept. Like aparigraha is not just a concept, it's something that we can live by, something that we can apply to our own life and change the way we think, breathe, and feel. And if you're a teacher, if you change that about yourself, you can teach better, be a better example. And if you're not a teacher and you're just a practitioner who likes to practice, you can level up your practice so much more, because you're doing your inner work and you're getting better and better with time. So I think that it's so critical and important for all of us to pay attention to our own inner work, to invest in it, to do it. And what better way to do your own inner work than through combining Indian philosophy and Indian psychology with modern day philosophy, psychology, and bringing it all together to do the deepest inner work ever possible. Right? So that's what we're talking about. When we say that building your expertise requires you to also be a very, very good student of the practice and then to keep going from there. Okay. So we've discussed so far that the first pillar of building your expertise is understanding Indian philosophy. The second most important pillar is, of course, diving into yoga and mental health and how we can combine both. Naturally, while you're combining yoga and mental health, you'll also begin to combine elements of spirituality will come up. You might start with uh, an element of like a surface level psychological understanding, but by default, you'll start going inwards and you'll start having more and more deeper spiritual realization. So, we looked at the first bucket as Indian philosophy, yoga, and mental health. And then the third one is also looking at some ancient yogic texts, right? We anyway do that a little bit in Indian philosophy, but when you pick up a certain text as your specialization, that also really helps to build expertise, because now you're niching down a little bit. You're choosing an area that you want to develop expertise in, that you want to master really. So even for me, when I decided that I want to talk about the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, it was a very natural process because I loved it so much. I could talk about it all day, right? So pick something that you truly want to develop expertise in, that speaks to you, that resonates with you. One of my suggestions to new yoga teachers and existing yoga teachers would be to don't just pick a topic just because, like because it sounds popular or something. You can make something that is not mainstream can be made mainstream if you have enough passion for it and if you believe in it enough. So always choose something that resonates with you more than something that you just want to put out because it's the popular thing to do, right? um, and true expertise, in my opinion, these days, true expertise can be built where there are gaps. Because if there's an existing, very popular area of knowledge, it's important that you start building expertise where there are gaps in that knowledge system. And there are gaps in every single knowledge system. Gaps in the sense that maybe something that people haven't spoken about too much, are not um, sharing too much expertise or relevancy on. And so you can pick that if you find that to be a little bit of a gap and bring it to the mainstream because we need that. So I would say your third thing would be, which ancient yogic texts do you want to specialize or focus on? Which one would you choose? And that's a great way to further build your expertise and to niche down even further. After that, the fourth bucket, right? So we've covered three so far. Let's do a quick recap. We've got Indian philosophy, yoga and mental health, and we've got picking an ancient yogic text. Now, the fourth thing that you also want to focus on is you want to be able to also have a good grasp on the practical knowledge of yoga, right? We can't forget the asana, pranayama, meditation, mudras, and bandhas. Those are also there, very much real, and many people need it for therapy, need it for healing, need it to be better versions of themselves. So we can't forget those. So your fourth and next one will be talking about how are you going to combine your knowledge of philosophy to make your asana pranayama meditation even more amazing, even more holistic, even more special for people to engage with. So you're studying asana pranayam, mudras, bandhas with a very deep desire to help people and to use it to do good. And that good can be done really nicely if you have existing philosophical knowledge backing up that good, and your intention to do well. So that would be the fourth thing. And the final fifth thing that I would say is, of course, developing your expertise in the art of teaching itself, right? We need to be good communicators. We need to be good speakers, teachers, writers, authors. These are all creative skill sets that as a teacher we have to develop because times are changing and there's a lot of information. And if you want to get your point across, people need to know what you're talking about and they need to know it as clearly and as succinctly as possible. So developing eloquence is also important as a teacher. So that's the fifth step of building your expertise. So a quick recap in what we've covered so far: building expertise is Indian philosophy, yoga and mental health, ancient yogic texts, choosing, focusing on the practical elements of yoga, asana, pranayama, mudra, bandha. And the fifth one, of course, is choosing how you're going to develop your teaching style. How are you going to teach in a more authentic way? Like being yourself but also having a good grasp of skill sets, right, to go along with it. So a little bit of everything goes a long way in helping you. Okay, so these are the top five buckets that I would say that really help to build your expertise. This is something that I've been doing, teaching, and practicing with our students for the last 2 or 3 years. I haven't spoken about it too much because we were still working with people that came to us through email, through social media, and just working with them one on one. And I wanted to know for sure that what we're doing is making a difference, adding value, it's the right thing to do before I started talking about it more publicly. But now I feel like we've taught so many people and helped so many people that it's my duty to share more with you to tell you about the kind of work that we've been doing, and also to just share with you how you can also use this 5 step process to develop your own expertise. It's a simple framework, but it really really changes the way in which you can operate and function. And it's so easy now to think about, oh, this is how I can develop my expertise. I have these 5 different buckets, and this is how I can get better with time. So, today's video is especially relevant for those of you who are looking to be yoga teachers, are really big yoga enthusiasts, and also somebody who's already in yoga teacher training. This would be very, very useful for you. I also know a lot of students that we teach who have done their teacher training but may have felt like some concepts were rushed over or not taught in too much detail. And so it's so refreshing to see those students, then they come back, they finish their teacher training, they take a moment and they want to dive deeper, which is such, it's just so amazing to see that people care so much about developing their expertise, and it makes me believe in the good of the world, because here are some very sincere people who want to master an art, master a craft, and to really understand it deeply. That's such a wonderful quality for anybody to have. And anytime students come our way and they express their intention like this, first and foremost, I always express gratitude to them, because makes me believe in the future of the teaching tradition, makes me believe that there's so many people who even now want to spend that time mastering the art and the craft, and then um, sharing their gifts with the world. So shout out to all my amazing students. If you're watching this, you know who you are. You guys are amazing. It makes me believe that people do want to develop their expertise, and it's because of them also that I'm making more videos like these now, where I can share what it means to develop your expertise and how to be a better teacher and a better student at the same time. So that's what I wanted to cover in today's video, just this 5 step process. I'm also happy to answer emails, questions, anything that you have about this process. And if you have any questions about how to be a better teacher, I'll be more than happy to help. At the same time, we're also working with some teachers now who are thinking about how they can authentically develop their niche or their expertise. And that's also something that has been very rewarding to teach and to practice. So super happy to jump in and help on that as well. Okay, so if you have questions about that, our email is in the description. Coursework is also in the description. Please feel free to tap into that. Reach out to us. I really do wanna know more and help more people who are serious about building their expertise. Those are the kind of people I want to work with. So yeah, and it's wow, it's already been 28 minutes. I talk a lot, but I think what we're going to do now is I will take some of the questions that have appeared in the chat and I will try to answer them. I'll hang around for some more time, so for those of you that are here and watching this live, please type your questions in the chat. Those of you that are going to see this afterwards as a replay, you can write your questions in the comments and I will do my best to answer as and when we get the time. Okay, so let us take a look at some of these questions from today. Have I ever please cover Sankhya philosophy? Yes, definitely. The plan is to do that. I've already made very, very detailed videos in our course on the Shradarshana, which has according to me, it's some of the best work that I have done. I'm very proud of that course. And so there we've explained Sankhya philosophy in detail. But yes, I will do at least a framework or kind of a beginner's training to Sankhya philosophy on YouTube as well. Did I ever try to attain the state of samadhi through yoga? I think that's what all of us are trying to attain, but in different stages and at different levels, right? So when you're in meditation, you might be reaching certain levels of practice, and which is great. And then eventually going towards mahasamadhi or very deep stages of samadhi. You should do that when you're sure, and you should do that when you're in the right phase of life and you're ready to go towards that state of samadhi, right? Because it requires um, a lot of dedication and perseverance. So, yes. Namaste from Nepal. Thank you. You're a perfect teacher. I mean, I try my best. I don't know if I'm perfect, but I try my best. Where is your institute? So, I have studied and grown up for a long time at the Kevalidham Yoga Institution, which is the the original or the parent institution is in Lonavala, which is in Maharashtra, India, and the one in Mumbai is in Mumbai. So that's where it is. It's called Kevalidham. I mean, everything that you're seeing or hearing me speak about today is thanks to my learnings and teachings from Kevalidham, along with my time spent at the Sri Aurobindo Ashram, learning and also all the visits that we made. My yoga teacher from school was a follower of Sri Aurobindo, so we did a lot of camps and trips to Auroville and Pondicherry, and it's been great. In fact, like I'll show you this. My table calendar, even today, is the table calendar that they give at Sri Aurobindo Ashram, which has quotes by Sri Aurobindo and the mother that I really like and I'm heavily influenced by. So I keep that here for me to see every day. And at the same time, so Kevalidham, Sri Aurobindo's ashram, a lot of integral, work on integral yoga by Sri Aurobindo. And along with that, of course, I'm also very influenced by CureFit, where I used to work, which is in Bangalore. And some of you have seen all my videos on that. But, CureFit really helped me to understand the physical nature of yoga more and the world of asana, pranayama, and meditation. So that's another has been one of my greatest teachers as well. I always watch your videos, especially the sutras. Wow, that's really amazing to hear. um, okay, I had already done TTC course from your institute in Mumbai. I wanted to do an advanced course. Well, have you done TTC from Kevalitham or from the Yoga Institute? Because they're two different places. Um, I wanted to do an advanced course. Okay, so in Kevalidham, the progression is we do something called the CCY course, which is like a certificate course in Yoga Institute. Um, yeah, Yoga Institute is very similar to Kevalidham in the sense that they had the same parent guru, Swami Madhavdas ji, who Paramhans Swami Madhavdas ji, who was the parent guru for both Swami Kovalananda ji and also the founder of the Yoga Institute. Um, and so, because of that, they share a lot of the same lineage. And so wanted to do an advanced course. So I would recommend you can check out like Kevalidham has a postgraduate diploma in which is a 9-month course, which I've done as well, which is great. And of course, they also have a tie up with KKSU to be um, to have an MA in yoga. So you can also do that. That's also what I'm doing right now. But I would recommend as much as possible to do it offline. But if you really can't do it offline, then yeah, online is the next alternative. Ashtasiddhis, can we attain them? Is it possible? See, anything's possible, right? It depends on how deep your sadhana is, and it also depends on what your life is like, what your lifestyle is like. Most of us are still engaged with the material world. Most of us have responsibilities, families to look after, parents to take care of, maybe spouses, children, etc. In which case, we have responsibilities to a lot of people, towards a lot of people in our lives. And then in that case, it's best to do yoga while living responsibly in society. And then once you feel like you've lived up to the responsibilities of your life, then you can go more deeply in the vanaprastha ashram and sannyas ashram towards the latter stages of your life, and then you can go deeper and deeper into this realm of yoga. But I would also say that we don't have to approach it from a lens of siddhis, right? Because siddhis is not why we're doing yoga. That comes as a byproduct. If we make that the aim of our practice, then we'll get too attached to the siddhis. And then how will you come out of the cycle of birth and death, right? So that's important. Okay. All right. Good questions so far. Let's see if there are any more questions coming up. And I'll try to answer those. But yeah, it's really nice to be here, just going live, because I know that it's so much easier for me to just teach this way and to share information and connect with everyone. So yes, and once again, I would say on the topic of building expertise that teacher having people to guide you, having teachers is very important. I am able to share what I can because I have the best, I mean, amazing teachers, and I continue to learn from them. If we didn't have gurus and the right teachers on the path, it becomes so much harder to do it on our own, you know? So I would say seeking help is a good thing as long as it's from the right people. Offline is amazing, otherwise online is fine. Like a lot of my students that I work with are international students, and obviously I understand because they're internationally located and they want to gain knowledge from someone who's in India who's lived the philosophy. The best option we have is online. But if you're already living in India, or you know someone who's really close to the tradition and practice and you can meet them, always better to train offline. Otherwise online is good. I'm a bit confused about how many hours to do yoga daily. I always practice 4 hours. Is it good for health? Okay, so that's a good question. See, yoga believes in moderation. So anything done in excess is harmful. So I think 4 hours is fine as long as it's not 4 hours at a complete stretch. Depends on your lifestyle also. 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening. If you're generally a healthy person, you have time, not bad. I think it's manageable. On average, even when we're teaching, we say that you should teach up to 4 classes a day, which is roughly 4 hours worth of teaching and movement. So that's fine. At the most, five. More than that is always a challenge for the body, right? Because then you're pushing it beyond a certain limit. So I would say it's okay. It mostly depends on how you feel, right? If you feel, yes, my body is adapting, yes, I'm able to do this, it's feeling good, then you can carry on. I think a lot of times our body and our intuition gives us the information we need already. So really, as yoga practitioners, our duty is to tap in, to check in, and to connect with our bodies so that our bodies can give us the answer, because our bodies know. Feel relaxed, then that's great. Then I think you can continue as long as you're feeling fine, and you're giving yourself enough time to do shavasana at the end and all of that. Then I think it's okay. I would though recommend that the 4 hours should not necessarily be continuous. Maybe you can break it up two and two, or however you feel is the best way to do it. All right. Okay. I'm also just looking at these options in the live chat. Oh wow, I can start a poll and I can also start a Q&A. Oh, let me see how this works. Okay. I'm just bear with me everyone, I'm just experimenting. Oh wow. Oh my god, this is amazing. Okay, great. So there's something called a Q&A section where you guys can all put your questions in, and I can literally, okay, this is amazing. So please put your questions into this question section, and then everyone can see it, apparently. So we'll find out. Great. And then there's also an option to start a poll. And then there's super chat, super sticker, super chat. Okay. Sorry, bear with me. I'm just literally looking at how this works. And then we have some of our stickers. Yep, those are some of our stickers. Some of you might be able to see. Okay, awesome. Okay, great. So, coming back to what we were talking about. Okay, so yeah, I think that whatever feels good to your body is fine on the whole. Um, age group 9 to 12, except pranayam, all asanas can do. I mean, yeah. So ideally, it's see when children are really young, it takes some time to fully adapt to the practice. So um, I think it depends on individual situations. But for us, we would go through the same routine again and again until the child was able to adapt to it. Nothing overly strenuous. And then once they're able to adapt to it, then you can keep increasing the challenge as you feel necessary, but better to teach children above the age group of 5 or 6. Younger than that can be too young sometimes. All right. I'll wait for a bunch of more questions. And then in the next 5 minutes, I'll wrap up this session. And I have to head to my next class. So I will move on and make my way there. But any more questions, please feel free. Those of you that see this later on, please add your comments into the comment section below. And also, I will say that please let me know what are some of the timings that you prefer for me to go live, right? Because usually I'm going live around 5:30 p.m. Indian time, but I don't know if people are watching internationally or any other time zones. Please let me know what is your preference, and I will try to match to that if I can. Okay, so any more questions? I'll just be here for a couple more minutes. And as I wrap on today's video, I will just say that please, please, please keep being an amazing student, keep learning, keep growing, always seek out the right information. It's important to develop expertise if you're trying to, especially if you're trying to be a yoga teacher or someone that is trying to keep growing in that direction. Okay, I have another question. What do you think about the increasing number of yoga teachers just finishing course and starting to teach rather getting into yoga just to earn or change the industry? Yeah, I think so. You know what, the thing is that a lot of people I meet tell me that they don't really want to be a teacher, but they did yoga teacher training because they wanted access to the yoga philosophy. And I'm just I really feel that there needs to be like courses that people can take if they don't want to be teachers, but if they just want to learn. And that's what we're trying to build in with, like, we've launched all our courses on the Thinkific platform. You'll see the links for that in the description. Our aim is to build that gap that everyone doesn't necessarily want to be a teacher, they just sometimes want more information. And then we want to be able to provide that information in an easy to learn authentic way without necessarily having to go through the entire teacher training process, especially if you don't want to be a teacher. If you do want to be a teacher, then of course you have to go through that. But some people don't, just doing it because they don't know where else to get the information. And I think so. Okay, so here's my opinion. I think that people that are going in this direction, it's great. I have personally have a lot of my friends as well that have done yoga teacher training, but usually they've been students for long enough to respect the practice, to have true affinity for it, and then they've gone ahead and done their teacher training. As long as that's the case, I think it's fine. But I will say, those of us that are deciding to take this on very seriously as an offering, as a profession, as something that we give to more people, we should be careful, right? Because just doing a 1 week training will may not give you enough tools to deal with certain conditions or therapy kind of conditions that yoga requires. So I would say even we ourselves, we should do yoga teacher training, and then we should know that we need to have practice, a lot of practice and contact hours before we can teach a certain type of student. So, in short, I think it's fine. It's going to be very difficult to reduce the number of yoga teacher training. So it's fine that there's increase in amount of knowledge, but then finding authentic sources is most important, and learning with people who are genuinely part of the tradition, part of the practice is helpful. How can yoga cure depression, anxiety, and overthinking, even some kind of OCD? Yeah, yoga is really great. See, anxiety, depression, overthinking all require different types of practices. Somebody who is depressed should not be starting with meditation, for example. They should start with more physical practices like Surya Namaskar or standing poses, asanas that help them to become a little more active. Because with depression, the energy is down. We have to revive the entire pranic system once again and let that energy rebalance happen. At the same time, anxiety and overthinking is usually an active increase in the utilization of energy in a way that's not necessarily beneficial for the organism. So what one needs to do in that case is we can go subconsciously into some yoga nidra practices, try to remove that tendency to overthink and have anxiety. You can also work through with pranayama and a little bit of meditation. It depends on where the student is. And see, a lot of mental health challenges sometimes come because of either suppression of emotion, non acceptance of a past event or happening, or lack of understanding of that event or happening. So, the more understanding we can create, the more knowledge we can create around it, the better. Okay, I really do have to run for my next class now, so I'm just going to take two more questions. Um, Different types of practitioners in your class require different types of attention. So that's why in a group class, there should be more or less normal people who don't are not suffering from any physical or mental health ailment. Those kind of people need private classes because their condition is so acute and so specific that it requires special attention. Whereas if it's someone who is normal physical and mental activity levels, then it's okay to have them in a group class. So that's why customizing your classes and knowing which students are coming in is very important. Like, for example, we won't take someone in our group class if they have some kind of serious physical ailment, or like they've had a disease in the recent past. Then we recommend that they go for the private classes because that's a better option for their case. So that's how we would suggest it. Okay. All right, everyone. It is nearly time for me to go because I really do have to be in my next class. But thank you so much for joining in once again. Really, really great to be here and to share some information and knowledge with you all. Please share your thoughts and feedback as much as you can. More information, as always, is in the description. And I would love to hear your feedback on our courses. So please do check those out. We're adding more and more into our library, and feedback is always helpful and very, very welcome. So please let us know your thoughts. And yogicgurukul.com is where all the action is at. All right. So thank you so much once again. Hope to catch you all soon. Have an amazing week ahead, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, everyone. See you.